pop in, say hi. If you've never been to one of these lives before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. This is my second live show that I do. I have my podcast, which I do live. What's My Good Cheer? This one is Chatters Live. This is the original. This is this is the one that actually gave me the I don't know, the insight, the lessons in order to be able to expand and pivot a little bit in that adapt and conquer in my brand, especially over COVID. Oh my goodness. Like, who would have known that this world was going to be locked down, that nobody was going to be out on the road adventuring and exploring and right? But that content, right? This is my brand. And everything about this brand is in the never giving up to find a way, that adapt and conquer, right? So, hello, Andrew. Hello, William. Hello, Owen. Oh my goodness. How's everybody's week been going? Nice to see you all in here tonight. Oh my goodness. I just got a cup of coffee. I'm wearing my sweatshirt that I was talking about on the last day, right? This is my year. I wore it to work today. I shined all day. I shined all weekend. Was it perfect? No, that perfect is for the most part unattainable, right? If you can find that perfection, take another look, right? Try again and you'll see that you can do it. You can do it better. But did I have a great weekend? I had an amazing weekend and we accomplished amazing, right? The place looked great. And the best part of it, I'm on my days off, so now I can apply myself to those other parts of me. Oh my goodness, Kathy's here. Sharon here too? Where's Sharon? Oh my goodness, Sharon. Hi, Sharon. If you guys don't know, Sharon is a friend of mine from Oakland, and Sharon actually came up here to Winnipeg right before COVID hit too, right? You came up in September and by January we were in it, weren't we? And it was a miracle how things work out and I'm grateful to have Sharon in my life still walking this path together. And even though we're not necessarily together, we are together because of that mindset, that mutual respect for each other, right? Understanding that it takes all kinds to make the world, and in allowing somebody to be themselves, you are giving yourself permission to be, right, yourself too. And I think that's absolutely amazing. And I've been thinking about it a lot this week, in all honesty, when it's tying in, because on my other show, What's My Good Cheer, we had this word, um, goals, and we tied it up in different perspectives all week. We talked about it, but it really did get me thinking. And you might not think that, right, that you yourselves are a part of my goals, but you 100% all. I would not have been here. I wouldn't have gotten as far as I can. I probably would have dragged my butt, procrastinated without that friendship and that connection socially, being somebody who has in the past few years in the very least become more and more, right, not as social. There are things in my life that right? Just like in everybody's life, that we all get to create the life that we wanna live. And in respect to myself, I have to say, if I need that time by myself, I'm going to take that time by myself if I find that it helps, right? That it doesn't hinder the movement, right? We're creating the best human being we possibly can. But that happiness, that joy of being a human is amazing, because I know easily the other end of that. And even though it didn't get projected on the outside, a lot of that was just left to fester on the inside, that I've come to understand that you gotta let all that stuff go, but you have to understand it when you let it go. You have to recognize it for what it is when you let it go. And I've been really looking at how far I've come and why I've come so far. And that's because, right, I've had that company along the way, right? And I know I show my appreciation, but sometimes being sensitive and highly empathic, sometimes, right, you think that maybe it's not being felt, you know what I mean, as a truth. And sometimes, especially being highly sensitive and empathic, we try to over express ourselves, over explain ourselves, right? And it's no different for me than anybody else. But at the same time, right, I want to make sure that everybody gets it, right? That everybody gets it. Okay, you guys, what has been going on with you? Sharon, I know you haven't been into the lives, but I'm not quite sure because I haven't seen the comments. So I'm not sure if you've been following the lives in the past, I would say, month or 6 weeks. But I am going down to Arizona this year. It's going to be part of my big adventure. And when I'm looking at the maps and stuff, Sharon, right? You're pretty close. And, I have to drive those. Well, don't necessarily have to drive that way, but wouldn't it be a lovely drive to drive the West Coast up into Vancouver and then just take the Trans Canada Highway home and just be able to see my hometown? I was born in Vancouver, British Columbia. I haven't been home, I would say, in 30 years. I haven't been home in it's not home, but I haven't been to Vancouver. And I don't say that in a discredited or disrespectful manner, right? It's just though my affinity, right? That home is where I am. I know it sounds corny, but it is true. And I don't introduce as much change into my life like I know I should, and I know I could. And I know it would be beneficial to me to get into that routine of constant change. But I try to do it, right, by throwing those wrenches in. But I sure would like to be better at choosing which wrench I'm throwing in, right? Because then I can kind of work the lessons myself, choose the lessons myself, rather than just flying with whatever is flying at me. Okay, Andrew says, I'm sorry you missed the service, William. Is there maybe a midweek service that you can attend to make up for that? Upset today. I missed service today. Were you speaking today, William? Is that why you feel bad, or you just feel bad when you don't make it to church? Were you yeah, cuz that I would feel bad that if everybody was waiting there for me to give a sermon, right? But it does happen. It does most likely. And the thing is, you can't beat yourself up when you do things that don't represent what you would intend to do, what you would like to do. Oh, I'm wondering. Yeah, let us know, William, what the scoop was on that. What happened in that? I'm just gonna have a sip of my coffee. I just got home from work. I tried to make something to eat, but it didn't quite make it. So I just put a plate over it. I'll have dinner later. I made myself something amazing, some chicken and pasta, and I did such a good job on it. At least I think it was yummy to me, right? I was enjoying it lots, but I said I was trying to shovel it down because I had my live show and I wasn't enjoying it as much as well, it needed to be enjoyed. It was really good. And I was just shoveling it down like it was my last meal. So I thought it was better. Just make a cup of coffee, come to the desk. Let's start our live today. I'm just gonna open my window a little bit here and get some fresh air. There we go. Get some fresh air into the apartment. Oh my goodness, I'm on days off. It feels absolutely amazing. I've got two movies. Oh, you guys, let me tell you about this movie. It was so sad. It was so heavy. I was so emotionally drained when I finished watching this movie. It was the true story of the parties that went up to the Everest, and coming home, how they or coming back down the mountain, how they were running out of oxygen, and they stayed too late, and it was in their hearts, right? Because some people were slow and they wanted to get to the summit of Mount Everest. And so people who had already been up there, right, didn't want to break this man's heart and decided to give this man his dream, which was to climb Mount Everest. They got him to the top. They took some pictures, but on the way down, they got smacked silly with a crazy storm, and it's a true story. I don't know if any of you have read or watched this movie. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't good. It did its job because I felt it, and it put me not in a bad mood, but it put me in a very contemplative and appreciative mood for, right, and these are goals. These were people's goals. And some people are willing to sacrifice themselves, to devour themselves, right, sacrifice, right, for their goals. No, right? Number one, I got to take care of myself. I wouldn't do something like that would put me in a situation where all those lessons I've been taking in might not be able to be expressed and to be appreciated by others. So, I wouldn't do something like that because, again, my well being is very important, right? But at the same time, and it had that, oh, what's it? Something Gyllenhaal. Oh, it was a good movie, but I bawled my eyes out. It was sad. It was adventurous. It was scary. It was on the edge of your seat. And yeah, I wouldn't watch it again. I wouldn't watch it again, not because it wasn't a good movie, just because of the way it kind of impacted me, because something like that should not impact me the way it is, because even though it's based on a true story, it is just a movie, right? But it put me in a mindset where I got into my mind. So for this weekend, this is the movie that I want to watch this weekend. I don't know if anybody has seen this one. This is DreamWorks. Yeah, DreamWorks movie. I really like DreamWorks. I can't remember the last DreamWorks movie that I I've watched, eh? I like the was it a Pixar? Um, and yeah, but DreamWorks, they do make really good movies, and this is a movie that I haven't seen yet, and I love the animated. I love the animated movies. I watched a really good animated movie last week. I can't even remember what it was, but it was good. Okay, let's come into the comments here for a minute, you guys, and see what's going on. I've got my mouse here, so we're back up and running. Oh, well, you know what, William? Be grateful, William, that you didn't have a sermon. Maybe God was just giving you that little scare, right? That little scare in your system, so that when you did have to give a sermon on Sunday, that you will remember to turn your phone on. Wow, right? So I would just be grateful that you didn't have a sermon. So I wouldn't worry about that, William. Uh yeah, William. Yeah, so come back to that. William, you play the organ? Well, I'll tell you. So William now says, well, I'll tell you like this. It was a crazy day. Things didn't go to what I planned. And of course, the devil always has a hand in everything. So, yeah. Yeah, but it's in our choices, William, right? You made a choice when you could have made a different choice. I do that myself every single day. Okay, and then William says, and you know, we had a guest speaker today at my church, but of course, the cause of situation, I wasn't able to make it, and the person that usually comes pick me up. I didn't even know he called me. Oh, William. Oh, I know you feel. You can see. I can tell how bad. I can tell how bad you feel. But don't beat yourself up. The volume was turned down on my phone, so I didn't even hear the phone when it rang. Not even know my ride was out there. Aw. Cindy, that book reminds me from way back called Alive. Oh, that movie, you guys. That was in the Himalayas too. It wasn't Mount Everest, but it was in the Himalayas, wasn't it? And it was a soccer team from there were Americans, and I think there were two countries on that plane, wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, you're right. As a soccer team, right? And they cannibalized in order to survive, right? They ate their teammates who passed away, and that's how they stayed alive. I can't imagine that stigmatism of knowing that you had to eat, whether it was family members or friends or coworkers, right? Even strangers, and not to have cooking tools, and right, that every bite you would have that impact of that thought of what you were doing. But that was necessity. Like I said, like, we are all the most important people in the world. You're the most important person in the world, and I would hope if you were in that situation when you were on a plane and you crashed into a mountain, right, and somebody had passed away, that you would utilize that person in order to make sure that, right, that you would survive. You are the most important person in the world, and I would not begrudge anybody that talking about the cannibalism. And what was the name, the Donovans, right, in what was it called, the Dunlop, the Dunlop Pass. Oh, jog my memory. The Donner Party, right, Andrew? The Donner Party. They were people from the West who were taking the wagon trails to get to, oh, they were from the east and they were taking the wagon trails west to California, and they got trapped in the mountains, the Nevada mountains, or the Sahara mountains. I think it was the Nevada mountains. They got trapped in the Nevada mountains, and they weren't that far away. They were not that far away. They almost made it, but they got trapped in the snow, and they sent a small party ahead with some goods just to see if somebody could get through. Somebody did get through, but the storms and the winter, right? And that Donner Party, which were made up of many, many different families, they survived on carnivores, right? They survived on the people who passed away. And can you imagine? And that was big news. And at that time, newspapers, right? The newsboys at the end of the streets. And that would have been the biggest story in the entire North America, I would think. That would have been huge, huge news. Ah, Sierra Nevada, got it. Yeah, Donner Pass. You're right, Sharon. Donner Pass. It's a super interesting story. They do have documentaries on YouTube. Um, and, it's an important documentary too, right? To how the extent we will go to survive, right? You're going to have to take me down, right? I never give up. And I had this conversation with my sister last week, Tracy. I went to visit her, and she's had a pretty hard go of it, right? I come from a dynamic family, and as much as I was my father's daughter, my sister Tracy was my mother's daughter. And in making that movement that I made, it forced others. It didn't even have a choice. It just, right? It was just a kind of a collapse of everything. And there were lots of influences. Right? COVID was an influence that we couldn't get together for family functions, right? We couldn't get together for Christmas dinner. We couldn't see our great niece, right? Right? Have her first baby and extend our family, right? And celebrating that mitochondria being passed down, right? Right? And it gets passed down, and it only gets passed down from mother to daughter. But my mother had four daughters, and as much as I am my father's daughter, that mitochondria gets passed down. And it is a fact. I don't know if you guys know this, and it might give you a little bit of comfort if you do, or maybe discomfort. It depends on how you look at it. But when you are a female and you are born, you already have your eggs. You already have your eggs. You don't grow your eggs. You don't create your eggs. Your hormones only release those eggs. So if you look at it and see if any of you agree with what I'm saying, your children are actually your parents' children. If you think about it, right? And the husband or the boyfriend or the one night stand, depending on the experience, has a bigger role than they possibly understand, because in the end, the the daughters are born with the eggs, and the deciding factor is the male, right? The male, the male's chromosomes that he's contributing to that pool. Whereas the daughter, well, She's a carbon copy in her mitochondria to her mother. And so technically, you're bearing your mother's children. Did you guys know that? Okay, let's take a look at here in the comments. A past bandmate, Bass, went on to work for Pixar. I still love animation, and Sharon was sharing the Donner Pass when I was thinking of the mountains and stuff and where they got stuck. But like I said, if you haven't seen or heard of that story, the Donner Party, super, super interesting, important story. Very important, right? We all grumble and complain and we beat ourselves up for our own lives. But if you can kind of put yourself in somebody else's shoes and their experience, and can you imagine the experience of having to eat your husband or a child or a friend? So you got to be grateful for what you have, right? And what came to my mind just now is when we were sitting at the dining room table. My parents, we always ate dinner at the table. It was one of my dad's rules that the family always ate together. We didn't always eat the same thing because my dad was a big T-bone steak guy, and that wasn't something you could feed the whole family, right? But and I was always on a diet, so I was always eating the salads and stuff, right? But our meals were always eaten together. And the thing is, my dad had say in that family, total 100%. He was at behind that steering wheel of my family. And I don't give him credit to how much work he put into that movement in his family. I don't know why he just didn't come out and talk about his beliefs. Quite often I go back into those conversations that me and him had, and I don't remember him ever, right? But it's not like I wasn't unaware, because the only reason I recognized, the same lessons when I walked into them myself was his books, right? And the content that he liked and the people that he admired, right? And so it gave me that recognition of, right, I am my father's daughter. And then at that point it becomes pretty easy, right? I just look at my dad, I look at my way my dad lived. He was a T-bone guy. I should be eating more meat. And to tell you the truth, in setting these goals this week and when I had limited funds for the groceries, bought a lot of meat. I made sure that I had lots of meat and lots of eggs. Not to say I didn't eat the rice, right? If I'm going to cook some chicken, I want some rice with my chicken. But I bought salad and I bought chicken and I bought steaks, and I don't eat steak, right? I'm not a big red meat eater. About as far as I go is sausages and hamburger. Right? I'm not a red meat kind of person, right? And it's not because I don't like the taste, but I don't like the recognition that they're living living creatures. And even though I didn't end their lives in being a participant in the rewards of the meat, right? I have to take that responsibility. Okay, coming back into the comments. Just I gotta come up. Wow, you guys yap. Holy cow, do you guys yap. Okay. Andrew says, if it was up to me, the western frontier of the United States wouldn't have gone further than the West End of Boston. Oh, really? That would be a lot of national parks, Andrew. Sharon says, the complications from COVID-19 combined with diabetes took my half sister Carol. Oh, I have a sister Carolyn too. Did we discuss that? Yeah, we must have. Um, took my half sister Carolyn away away others but don't want to dwell, right? You know what? It's not a matter. See, that's the thing that I really it's polite, right? It's polite when we're hurting, and I've had this conversation lots of times on my Instagram that when things things happen in our life that sometimes we suck it in because we don't want to bother other people. It's like when somebody truly that we love, like your sister, your mom, your dad, and somebody passes away, that they give us 3 days paid, what do they call it, bereavement pay they call it, and then you get 3 days off and your job pays you to have those 3 days. But 3 days isn't enough when it's a parent, a sibling, right? Somebody who's so close to you. It's not enough time, and then we don't give ourselves that time to properly grieve it, right? And I say it's talking, crying, and time that help us get over these sad moments in our life. And I right, I'm a big yapper. I am a big yapper, but I think probably it's why I heal up as quickly as I do. I can say I'm contradicting myself there because it did take me years to get over my breakup of my marriage. I really loved my husband. I really did not believe that it was over, that it was even possible that it could be over. And I invested a lot in my emotions. Maybe that helped me out because it kept me optimistic, it kept me on my toes, it kept me right, not for going deeper into what makes us comfortable when we're not happy with ourselves. But for the most part, I think that I do talk a lot about my emotions because I understand I got to get it out of my system, right? Lots of people do other things. They go for walks, right? They'll go for a bike ride. Sometimes they need to go for vacations. Sometimes they get into gardening, or they, like my mother, she got to church and she joined a church. Unfortunately, I did not respect religions, especially religions that I wasn't properly familiarized with, right? And they were Christian religions too. But the way they ran, it made me very nervous. It made all my sisters very nervous, and I wasn't woke to any of these, right? This equality and this respect for other people's beliefs. I didn't, right? Just say, oh, that's kind of wacky. And my sister or my mother got herself into a church where she gave away 10% of her income every payday. She gave it to the church. She invested money in the church's retreats, which they were constantly doing retreats. And I'm not talking negatively, and now I'm just trying to say maybe some of those things that you might recognize why uh, us girls, we worked on her. It took us, I would have over a year. It took us maybe 2 years, and she was grieving my dad, and she needed something, and she found this church, and she got involved in this church. But to us kids, the church just seemed like a cult, right? And for me, that's that lack of respect because I didn't understand speaking in tongues. I didn't understand. I thought that was wacky. That was crazy stuff. And a lot of people think that way, right? A lot of people think that way. I don't think that way now because I do have a lot of respect because I follow people who do light language and who do, well, I don't know anybody that speaks in tongues, but I know people who do light language, right? And Reiki, and lots of things that 10 years ago I would have thought was super super strange, and now it's not. And if I could do something different for my mother, do that for my mother, even in that hurtful relationship that I had, that maybe she might have found some happiness in her last years, and maybe she would have liked to have stayed around because she socially was able to interact, or she was emotionally able to get over my father's death a little bit, that she was able to make a little bit of movement and happiness for herself. I would have let her stay in that church if that was what she loved and that's what she wanted to invest her life and her time to. I would have respected that and I would have allowed her to do that. Now, how that would have affected her life, would it have made it so she would want to stay, right? See her grandkids grow up. I'm saying that only because she did have options. My mother knew that she was very, very sick. She didn't like doctors. We got her in to get knee replacements, but we had to have both knees done at the same time because we knew it would be the last time we ever got her into a hospital. She did not like doctors, and she worked in hospitals her entire life, but she had no trust or no faith in them at all. And she had that operation on her knees, and she was doing mall walks, and she was pain free after that for almost 10 years, right? But when she got that cancer, and it was stomach cancer, when she got that cancer, she never told anybody. She never went to the doctor. She never told her kids about it. It was only because we recognized one of the symptoms when we had a an outing that she came to, and we could tell that she was really sick, and we got her to the emergency room the next day, and that's when things started moving pretty fast. And within 10 days, my mother was gone, right? And she would have left without even saying goodbye to any of her kids. We didn't even know if she wanted to be cremated or wanted to be buried. And I hope nobody feels this is to be a morbid kind of conversation, because this is usually really, really light conversation, right? But it is part of life, right? It is part of life. And I just would like to see that we can get these things out of our system a little bit easier, a little bit faster than what we do, right? Instead of just holding off and putting in our shelves and paying respect to the people that we're around so that we don't, make them feel heavy because they're in noisy knees, or right, and they're feeling sad, or right, somebody triggered, like I having this conversation may or may not trigger somebody's emotions or somebody's memories, right? But it's not my intent, and that is the truth. And so all I'm going to say now is, just if you feel like it, go right ahead. Okay, let's come back into the comments. Take a sip of my coffee while I do that. um uh Andrew, uh this medical information reminds me how the gene from hemophilia was spread through the royal families of Europe, because Queen Victoria's daughters carried the gene to different royal families, right? The mitochondria, because we can, as females, reject, like the what is that blood type, RH, the RH negative. The women who have RH negative blood, which is a small percentage, but the RH negative blood, the women, when they get pregnant, their bodies attack the fetuses. And so they have to be watched under the doctors. They have to be given medication and stuff so that their body doesn't reject the fetuses, right? But yeah, you're right. That gene was pretty rampant, right? What was the last child to have that? Oh, right. And when you say that, families of Europe, the Tsar of Russia's son had hemophilia, right? I can't remember what his name was, but it was their youngest child, and they had a son, and he had hemophilia, and he was very, very sick. Okay, coming down into the comments. Okay. Andrew says, William, I had a sandwich for lunch, a burger for supper. Not exciting. I diced a chicken breast, and I diced it and I sauteed it in butter and in onions, and then I mixed it. I mixed it in pasta. It's really, really good. Yeah, it's really good. I'll be finishing it later. Okay, William says, um, had a vegan pasta last night. They had a dinner program at my church last night. It was a very nice, right? And he helped to serve it. See, William, you made it to church last night. Give yourself credit for doing that. Give yourself credit for helping, right? To have a dinner program. That's amazing. A dinner program. How many people do you feed on your dinner program, William? How many people? And what type of people do you feed? Are you feeding the congregation? Are you feeding members of government agencies? Are you feeding the neighborhood? Are you feeding the homeless? Who are you feeding? Maybe you're feeding everybody. Mm, I made a good cup of coffee. It's at the perfect temperature right now. Um, Sharon says, fear of medical industry took my mother-in-law. She had a hernia but wouldn't go to the doctor. Became toxic. I don't like hospitals either, but will go when necessary. Sorry for my loss. What was my loss, Sharon? I'm trying to think what was my loss. Oh, when my marriage fell apart. Yeah. That's love though. That's heartbreak. And in fact, those were full of lessons, and the heartbreak was kind of beautiful because even the marriage was something I never ever expected. It had to manifest because that was my dream. Those were my childhood dreams. They had to be manifested in some way. But I didn't manifest for it to stay forever, I guess, right? It wasn't a happily ever after, but there were lots of lessons into that. Okay. Andrew or William says, Andrew, the food was very good. I think everyone had a lovely time last night. The program was pre-programmed for their pastor's anniversary. The program was called In the Name of Love. Oh, that's amazing, William. That's amazing. Andrew says, "Oh, it's going so fast now. I gotta back up, you guys. I'm not gonna say slow down, but I'll have to slow down to get backwards." Uh, Andrew says, "That is sad, Sharon, about your MIL. I can understand her fear. The medical community around here is almost a monopoly and huge. There is much resentment and dislike of the Indiana University Health." Oh, that's so unfortunate that we think about these about our own medical system, right? There are grumbles within the Canadian medical system for sure. We don't have enough nurses, number one. We are always dipping into that pool of nurses from the States and bringing them up here so they can, right, gain that experience so that they can go after the jobs that they want. But we do take them and they do serve here in Canada. We have a lot of nurses, male and female, that come up from the States here, and we offer them good money, but we do have shortages in nursing staff. What about you guys? Do you guys have shortages in nursing staff? Are the Canadians taking what the Americans could use themselves? I mean, it doesn't matter if you can use them if the government's not going to pay for them to be in use. They still have to make their wage, right? So they should be utilized. So I wouldn't begrudge Canada for bringing on the immigrant workers, right? And they're not immigrant workers, right? There are I don't know what they have a special name to them. Seasonal workers, seasonal workers. I'm not sure. Um, William says, "Yes, Cindy, I'm feeding the homeless. We do homeless feeding. We give out clothes. We do a lot of things for our community. But as I said, it was pre-anniversary program for one of our pastors. Perfect. Um, Indiana University Health System. Sharon says, the woman you said had stomach cancer, my mother. I thought you said it was your mom. I need to listen. No, it was. You were 100%. But remember, right? And I'm glad that you actually even brought it to my attention. But it is in that dynamic relationship with my mother that I didn't fall apart, that I accidentally, right? And that was something I should have taken note when you said that. But it says something about that relationship that I had with my mother, that it didn't affect me, that I didn't need more than my 3 days off in order to uh, right, carry on with my life, right? And and it's not a good thing. I shouldn't feel that way about my mother passing away. I shouldn't, but I do, and I have to be honest in that, right? I do have to be honest in that, because somebody, right, might be that person that was like my mother. It wasn't like my mother wasn't loved. Lots of people loved my mother, right? But me and my mother did not move well together. We never we never did. It was very difficult, not just for me, but I assume it was very difficult for her too. I just remember, even as a small child, during the holidays, at Christmas and spring break and everything, that I was always shipped off to my aunt and uncles who were trappers up in Williams Lake, or 150 miles, pretty close to Williams Lake. And they had a trap line up there, and every time that we had any extent of time, right, like 2 weeks or something, I would be put on a bus and I would be sent up to spend that time with my aunt, because it was too much. Like, our souls did not get along, and her being the mother, right? It was her way or the highway, and she could care less, and she would probably prefer the latter, right? But I think in the plan she didn't have much choice, right? So yeah, that's a conversation another day, and that conversation would be on, surprisingly, jealousy and resentment, right? That a mother would have for their child, a child that was made to think that they had nothing to give, right? That they had nothing to offer, that they were programmed to think that they were a big fat zero, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm glad you understand that, Sharon, but I'm really am glad that you said that, because I didn't give it any thought. I was totally confused. Sorry for your loss. Like, I'm thinking, what loss? Like, what loss? And then I'm thinking, like, the breakup of my marriage. Yes, that was very sad. It was very heartbreaking. But no, it was my mother passing away. But that passing did not affect me at all, in all truth, right? I was the good daughter, but I was the good daughter out of duty, right? Because because I didn't have a choice, right? If I wasn't the good daughter, I wouldn't be considered a part of the family, right? I would have been ousted, I would have been shunned, I would have been, right, sent out to the desert, and I would never have had these I'm not going to say amazing relationships with my sisters, but I have tight bonds with my sisters. I'm only saying that they're not perfect because they have gone through a trial. Remember what I said, that my sister's going through a very, very hard time right now in every aspect of her life. And I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but we have a little bit of insight as to, right, what's going on with us, right? What's going on with us? We have a little bit. Each one of us here has a little bit of insight as to those little bit of hiccups and those problems that we have. But can you imagine not having that knowledge, not having that understanding, and yet have to go through the exact same experience? Not like exactly the same, but the exact pain, right? Lessons, right? Different lessons, but lessons, scary, scary lessons, lessons that, for me, I know I have a little bit of understanding. So I have those lessons and I'm going to say, okay, let's get this sorted out. Let's figure this out. Let's take in this lesson and let's move on to the next lesson. Whereas somebody else will get those lessons and going, oh my goodness, my life is falling apart. I can't make it one more day. How do I solve? What did I do wrong? Right? And once you're in that state, that's when we start, crawling over ourselves and crawling over others. You are the most important thing in the world, right? And if it gets right down to it, you are the most important person in the world, even to the extent of others, right? But if there's something we can do, and that's what holds us back, because we can see people going through their own stuff, but they're just not getting it. They're just not accepting the lessons. They're just not joining in on those conversations, and they're just not making any movement. They're just sitting there getting battered right and left, right? So it is what it is. That's right. Those are things that you can't do anything about except be the best sister that you can be. Be the good daughter, be the good sister, be the good friend, be the good neighbor, be the evidence, right? Be the evidence for other people. Okay. So we're coming back down. We're getting close to the end of those comments here. Oh, we did come to the end. Okay. But yeah, don't beat yourself up, William, about not making it to church this morning, right? It does happen. I would just give a little bit of prayer, a little bit of grateful to God for making sure that today you weren't giving the sermon. Wouldn't that, if there was no preacher or no reverend to be at the church to open up the doors and everybody was standing outside waiting for you and nobody could get it? Just imagine how you would feel at that point, how you feel now. I would just let that slide, William. I truly would. I think everybody recognizes, right, that you have a good soul, and you would have been there if you could, right? It wasn't your intent, right? It wasn't your intent, but these things still happen. What was my intent? Oh, here's one good one, right? Here's one when we talk about intent. And when I say, my weekend was great, right? It went really well. The store looks beautiful. For the majority, my customers were super happy. But I did have a customer today. And that customer, we had a tag, a color tag. This is how our store works. We have a colored tag on sale. And this week we had 60% off of red tags. Now, whatever tags are on sale, those are the color tags we were using to price things last month. But now we're pricing things different this month, a different color. So that color is the sale items, right? So guy comes up. He says, what did he say to me? How did he catch my attention with that? There was. I'm trying to think how he got my attention, but in any case, I found a red tag on something that he wanted to buy. He was heading up. He says, "Oh, I'm going to buy this." And I looked at it and it had a red tag on it. And all those red tags were all priced last month, right? But it's 60% off, red tag. And I said, "I'm really sorry, sir. I can't sell that to you because somebody has switched the tag on that. I priced that yesterday," right? And he goes, "I didn't change the tag." I said, "I didn't say that you changed the tag. I just said that the tag was changed." And he says, "Well, how much is it?" I says, "I think I charged $250, but just to be on the safe side, we're going to call it $350 now, right? We're going to call it $350 now." And he was with his partner, and her partner just went all aboard me. "I'm not a thief. I didn't change the tag. You didn't even have this in your hand. I didn't even know that you were with this person. I wasn't even talking to you. I didn't say you stole it, of course, but right, it wasn't my intent to make you feel that way." I said it wasn't, because it wasn't my intent, but this person was triggered. And I have this kind of saying in my head, when you, oh, I think it's a Shakespearean kind of quote. Maybe Andrew can help me out with this one. You something too much. You I can't remember what the quote is. Somebody help me out. You I think it starts with a P. You pro Ah, thank you. Oh my goodness. Thank you, you guys. Right? Methinks the lady doth protest too much. And she showed her colors. I never said that they changed the tag. But after she went off on me like that, and she was not nice, and she let me have it, and I told her it was my intent. I didn't say you switched the tag, right? I'm just telling you somebody switched the tag, and that has to go back in for reprocessing, right? And he says, "How much you going to put on there?" I says, "I don't know, 250, maybe 350 now." Right? Right? And she went off on me. Yeah, so that was my entire, and they left, and all I could do is say, "Have a good day, have a good day, have a good day." But of course, right, being highly sensitive and empathic, I wasn't wrong in saying what I said, right? And I certainly wasn't going to let a more expensive item go for something that cheap. And if somebody had switched the tag to a sale tag, why would they put it back on the shelf? Right? They just made this item like only a few cents. What this item was an attachment for a bike. Like, it wasn't a basket, but it was a little container holder was what it was for a bicycle. And it was brand new, right? And it would have been like 40 cents or something at 60% off. We're just like, "Sorry, you are not taking that for 60 cents. I priced that yesterday." Because that's what I do. Saturdays, I help my cashier. up at the front. He's my head cashier. He's an amazing cashier. And people don't try to get away with things with him like they do with me. Right? They know I'm running the show. So they'll come right at me and they'll wheel and deal and haggle. And it's not a good feeling, right? And especially when I've been spoken to about that wheeling and dealing. We do it with the furniture and stuff, but we're talking about things that are actually priced, like have an actual price tag on it, like the clothes, like their items are a certain price that have certain standard pricing. Like we don't mess with that, right? And so my cashier, I just help them out with bagging and I price things with them, and everything is through the donations. My job, my paycheck every 2 weeks is through the donations provided by our community. And we got such amazing things. You guys, the most amazing thing came into, lots of amazing things come in all the time to my store. And you'll see some of those things on next Sunday, right? Is show and tell. I had to get a bigger bucket. I had a big bucket because usually we use milk crates, but my milk crate wasn't big enough for all I get. And so I put a Rubbermaid container there, but that was even overflowing. So I put an even bigger one there. And yes, there's big things in it, but it's full. It's totally full. So show and tell next Sunday. It'll be lots of fun, and you'll really think it's cool. Some of the things that I got this payday. What was I going to say in that? I lost my train of thought when I flipped back to the show and tell. Oh, show and tell, that you'll see some of the amazing things that I picked up, right? So okay, let's go back into the comments because I lost my train of thought on that one. Okay. As a phone worker, I've had people get nasty to me. I think it's because they can't see me. But they sense you, Andrew. You know, right? It's 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 the triggers, and they do. Do those triggers make you feel bad? And that'd be a good question for Andrew, because I have to say that when that woman flipped out on me, it did take me by surprise because it was unexpected, right? I was doing my job, and she went off on me, but there's nothing I can do about that, right? But at the same time, it still hurts. It still makes you feel bad because you don't want people to be angry with you. But, right? People do. And I triggered somebody. It was unintentional, but that trigger, like the quote, I do believe you protest too much. I didn't say it right. I had to come up here to read it again. But, oh, methinks, where is it? Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Right? So, uh, even after that, even knowing that probably they did, like, I would have to say 85%. And in my mentorship, I've been taught that if you're 85% sure, you have to be 100% sure, because that other 15% is you questioning that intuition, you questioning that maybe, or looking at the possibilities. You're doing that. But if you can get to 85% of being positive, you might as well just consider yourself 100% positive. And that was the way I was taught. Okay, come down into the comments. Wow, yibber yabbers. But yeah, being highly sensitive, it is a trait, and it's not like it's anything out of the ordinary, because there's really realistic reasons for that. And that is in our evolution. That is in that alpha ship. Is that a word? Alpha ship? The alphas, keeping keeping okay, it's like a lion and his pride. The lion is number one. Every once in a while, a son will come and meet face to face with the leader of that pack, right? Of that pride, and they will go at it and fight. And if the son can beat the father lion, then the son becomes the alpha. And you can also look at this in the apes and the gorillas, and there are lots of species in this world who do this. But when you recognize the weakness in others, when you recognize the kindness in others, when you recognize the light in others, people want to keep that down, right? Keep it in a negative frame of mind. If I had stayed in a negative frame of mind, I would never have gotten to where I am right now, right? And that's a 100% truth there. And I'm grateful for that stubbornness. I'm grateful that I recognize that we were talking earlier about jealousy and envy and spitefulness and uh yeah, it was strange because I was taught that I was a zero. So why would those emotions be there in that other person, right? Why would they be jealous of me, right? They told me, they made me feel, I know I'm a zero because you told me I was a zero, right? Right? Don't question me. I said so, right? And that's the way I was taught. But somehow, right, to be able to stand up for myself and recognize, and maybe I didn't even stand up for myself, but at the very least, I recognized it when it was happening, when it was happening, and it's part of nature, isn't it? It's in that, right? The strong have got to survive, and it's just not the strong, it's the beautiful, it's the rich, right? And if they're not feeling good, right? It's that idea, misery likes company, right? Or not even like company. Well, you can hold that whole package, right? And that's what the sensitives do. They take the blame, they take the shame, they take the guilt, they hold on to that, right? And when you say that people yell at you for no reasons, well, right, I just look at it like they just have not evolved in their evolution. They'll get to where I am right now. They'll get to where you are in that moment. But in this moment, they're not quite there yet. But who am I to judge? Because it wasn't my intent to trigger somebody. And what if they didn't change that sticker, right? That's that 15%, right? That puts that doubt. That's why if you're 85%, if you're almost there in your conviction, you run with it, right? You run with it, because if you don't run with it, somebody else is going to run with it and going to let you know what you missed out on, what you got wrong. Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about that, but it's easier said than done because I'm impacted. It took me about 20 minutes to get over, that woman flipping out on me, right? And I did question myself, but when I questioned myself, I played out, right? The conversation and the interaction again. And I came to the resolution there was nothing else that I could do. I couldn't have that item. I don't lie. I have to tell them the reason why I can't give them that item, right? And they just have to accept it at that. And that's just the way it goes. And people do blow off for no reason. And sometimes you're not getting it for what you did. you're getting it for what the past 20 people before you gave to them. And they just decided, ooh, I recognize that weakness in you. I recognize how kind you are. I recognize that you're not going to say anything to me if I say something to you. I recognize that meek demeanor. Have a little bit of that, right? And it happens. It truly does. But not as often as it used to, for me at the very least, because, I practice my craft as my everyday part of my life because it has to be a part of my life. It has to be my creation, it has to be me in my self parenting, right? And so um, you just gotta ride with it. Okay. Yeah, and that's true too. There was nothing I could do about it. And if it doesn't fall properly on the ground, it is what it is because in my intent, right, I handled it the best that I knew how to handle it in that moment, right? I'm not saying I handled it right, but the best way that I could handle it. And it wasn't my intent. And I've also been taught, right, to look at the intent, right? Because it's kind of like we fail ourselves all the time, right? And we can beat ourselves up for not getting it right. But you have to be proud of that effort. If you made a little bit of effort, you got to be at very least proud of that, right? Proud I did my job. It is what it is. Okay. Um, Sharon says, you handled it so much unfounded defense. They probably did do it, but you were on the job and you did your part. And that's true too. Uh, and she continues with, and the merch is already sold at a substantial discount, but some people still give clerks a hard time. Oh my goodness. Haggling all day long. It's just everybody. And I get it. Everybody wants a deal. But every time they don't get their deal, if they don't get a little bit extra, if I won't wheel in deal, it always comes back in my face. But you got it for free. It was donated to you. You got it for free. Well, that free allows this company that I work for to hire people who are trying to get their lives back together. It hires people who have social, economical, right? They have family issues, emotional issues, right? Even handicapped, right? So yeah, it is donations, but it's donations so that we can have jobs. That's what that is. And I am moving out of that job, right? I am moving out of that job. As things get better in my life, I love my job, but that job is a safe haven for somebody else who's ready to put their life back together. There are changes coming, people. And even though I don't know how these changes are going to happen, I do know that they're going to happen, right? I just also don't know when they're going to happen, but they're going to happen. They have to happen. Why? Oh, I do know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. It's going to happen. It's going to happen this year because this is my year. Okay. Andrew says, when I worked for the Red Cross book fair, people would cheat. Even the Red Cross, which charged pocket change for good books. And that's the truth too, right? We have lots of books, very inexpensive. Hardcovers are $1.50. Soft covers are 75 cents. The teenager books are 75 cents. And the baby books, the non-chapter books. Those are 50 cents, right? And there's lots of them on 60% red tag, right? And they do that too. They peel the tags off of the antique books. They don't realize I'm up there all the time. I work 4 days a week and I'm up at the till. I touch base with every single customer when they come into the store, and I touch base with every single customer that leaves the store. I do. And we have an amazing community there. But we have people who are trying this experience for the first time. We do have sneaky people that don't have good values. And these antique books that I've marked at $4, $4 for a book that might be worth $100, or $5, even a $10 book. In the antique books, right? Regular books, I don't care, right? But those antique books, we want our cut, right? And they'll peel the stickers off of them. They'll come up and they go, "Oh, this book doesn't have a sticker." They don't realize I put an extra sticker inside the book. So I just open up the book, look in the inside, and I go, "Oh, that'll be $5, please." And they'll, "Oh, in that case, I don't want it." Or that I'll open up that page where I have the extra sticker, and the tag will be a different color than the tag that's on the outside of the book. It's funny. People always are looking out for a deal. Even I love a good deal, right? Me and my sister, we love thrifting. And right, I am in my lessons and in practicing my craft, that sneakiness has to be dried out in me, right? And it's not a matter of that I have a ton of sneakiness, that I might even not even have any sneakiness. Maybe it's just all that guilt and shame that I carry that makes me feel like I'm not worthy, or I have a um, what do you call that? Imposter syndrome. You have an imposter syndrome that you don't think you're as good as you really are, right? Or right, maybe in that imposter syndrome, maybe I'm a lot worse than what other people are, right? Each one of us are different, and I don't hang out with a lot of people. And I picked and choose all my friends and all the people that have come into my life, all that, all that influence. And I suspect that I picked up just as much yucky stuff as I did great stuff. And that is the truth. And I think that's with all of us. But it's just a matter of, right, trying to help yourself out of those situations whenever you can, picking up the lessons along the way, having those conversations, having those good cries, and then just wait for things to level out a little bit better. Okay, you guys, let's tie it up tonight. Finish out what's going on in the comments. Thank you, everybody, for showing up tonight. It was absolutely amazing that you guys keep hanging out with me on Sunday nights. I hope you get as much out of the night as you guys do. You guys are such yappers. Oh my goodness. These were conversations tonight. And Robert, if you're out there, I don't know if you knew that, Sharon, but when you're not here, I always throw out hellos to you, because I know you do on occasion come in and watch the live shows after the fact. So I always say those hellos to you. So don't hesitate to come in to watch the rewind of the live. And also, um, in that, right, people join in the conversation, because I leave the live chat there for everybody, right? They get to say hi to you too, and you'll be able to see that. And again, Robert, if you're in the background, I know that you come in quite often to watch the live shows, but you don't always join in the conversation. That's 100% okay, right? But I just wanted to say hi, and I hope your week is going good, right? And if you're not in the chat, I'd have to say, right, guys, that no news is good news. Okay, you guys, that's the show tonight. I am going back to my dinner. I'm going to throw it in the microwave, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. I'm going to take in a couple of lessons, put on my pajamas. You can tell how much I yap at work. You can hear it Sunday nights in my voice. But if you come in during the week to my Chatters Live show, you probably would hear a different voice on me, right? Because my voice is all tagged out. I have a lot of conversations. I'm all about community on the weekends, but I am grateful for this job that allows me to put the roof over my head and also allows me to practice my craft, but also, like today with that woman going off on me, get a lesson for myself, right? And sometimes it's just in that understanding, right? And recognizing that 15% that Cindy's still kicking in. Okay, you guys, see you next week. And if you guys want to come in during the week, we have Chatters Live on Monday to Friday. You can come join me on Instagram on Saturdays. I spend Saturdays on Instagram. And other than that, Sunday night, we'll see you next week. Bye bye.